All right. So my project was on adolescent volunteering. Oh, great. All right, here we go. In 2017, over 64 million Americans donated a combined 8 billion hours of time to volunteering. As well as this, it was worth over $175 billion in economic impact. It's safe to say that these numbers have been rising steadily ever since, and in October of 2019, I got to make my own contribution. I was blessed with the opportunity to go on a trip to Puebla, Mexico, that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And on this trip, I got to meet some amazing people, missionaries who gave up the comforts of life in America to live in various parts of Mexico. These are just some pictures from my trip. My name is Isak, and the point of my senior project was to show that not only should you make volunteering a priority, but that all adolescents should take part of a long-term volunteering experience because of its benefit. My project was essentially divided into 3 parts, the first of which was a fundraiser that I conducted for 2 orphan homes that I got to visit in Puebla, one of which was a boys' home and one of which was a girls' home. The day after my group arrived, we got to visit the 2 homes where we were given a tour of the home, we got to meet all the kids, and we got to play some games with the kids. The homes were clean and spacious, and the kids were growing up in a loving environment. I believe that every adolescent should have an experience like this where they get to see and experience another culture. Even if it isn't an international trip like this, it's important to experience other cultures and communities as well. For someone that's never left the country before this, getting to interact with the Mexican people gave me a picture of life outside the United States, and this is something I will take with me the rest of my life. Now, I was inspired to help the kids after they welcomed me so well into their home last year, and I specifically wanted to do something for Christmas since I knew towards the end of the semester was the holiday season. My original plan was to do a donation drive for supplies or Christmas gifts, but I understood that with the pandemic, things would probably be a little more difficult and risky, and I also posed the risk of not as much participation as I needed because of the pandemic. In the end, I decided on an online fundraiser, which was the safest way to donate, plus more gifts could be bought for the kids because Mexican goods are cheaper. Easier to advertise since I could just simply, people would go straight to the fundraiser. So I set up a GoFundMe page and I posted on my Instagram and went from there. And my original goal was $250. I honestly had no idea what to expect. I had never done something like this before. But within 24 hours, I ended up having to double this goal to $500 because the $200 mark had already been surpassed. Within a couple days, I also had to raise it to $750 because yet again, the $500 mark was surpassed. In the end, I ended up raising just over $1,000, which honestly blew me away. It was awesome to see support from people from school, including teachers. I got donations from people from my church, and some people that I didn't know contributed significantly to the donation fund. So I sent my funds down to a contact in Mexico. They used my $1,000 as well as another $400 from another church to buy 8 bikes for the kids. So these were just some Christmas gifts for the kids. You can see they have their bikes now, and they made sure to get them for the whole age range of kids. So this was just super cool to see and witness, and I was honored to contribute to these kids' Christmases, as well as give them a good end to a probably stressful 2020. Now, the second part of my project was volunteering at my church, and more specifically a food pantry that my church runs for the homeless and less fortunate in the Concord area. So this happened on the first and third Saturday of each month, and it ran for about 3 hours in the morning. So as you can see, this is the general setup. The pandemic obviously changed things a little bit, but the general routine was still the same. You had different categories of food, mostly canned goods, on carts placed around the gym. People were spaced 6 feet apart at all times. It was very efficient, and in the end, things really weren't changed all that much from the normal routine. Through the food pantry, I got to meet some awesome people, one of which was Jim Hawkberg. Jim and his wife, Lisa, run all the logistical things of the food pantry, like collecting donations, going through funds, and they even come in on every other Saturday to help out. I had the chance to interview Jim, and through the interview, he was adamant that all adolescents should volunteer. And he's quoted as saying, "It can really give you a broader view of the world that's out there instead of maybe just your small world or community." That opinion coming from someone with as much experience as him is very important. Now, through the food pantry, I was brought out of my comfort zone. I wasn't able to relate to the experiences of the people coming into the pantry in any way. I have been fortunate to have never struggled with getting food on the table. So being able to relate to these people brought me out of my comfort zone and in the end taught me how to interact with them and experience a new community. Having a broad worldview is very important, and if adolescents want a broad worldview, they need to step outside their different niches and experience different cultures and communities. Now, the third part that I did was my research on volunteering. Throughout my research, I found various articles and videos that gave me a clear perspective as to the benefits and drawbacks of volunteering. So I'm going to start with the benefits. And I want to reference one article, which was a study conducted in Australia about adolescent volunteering. And just something from the article: volunteering may provide an important context to support psychological and emotional developmental growth. The present findings demonstrate positive longitudinal associations between adolescent volunteering, secondary school completion, and volunteering in young adulthood. I would consider these all to be very important and good things. Another article also mentioned that volunteering develops emotional intelligence as well as problem solving. These things are generally considered important to social development, which is very important as adolescents will learn life in college as well as their future careers. Now, there are some drawbacks to volunteering, and as you read throughout this list, you can probably sense there's a general theme with all of them, which is a lack of preparedness for the volunteering experience. When you're going into a long-term volunteer experience or a mission trip, you need to be prepared, and obviously, if you're not prepared, stuff like this is going to happen, and it's going to end up doing more bad than good. So in order to prevent this, I made a list before volunteering that you can use if you were to ever go on a mission trip or anything like this. It's just super important to be prepared for these things because in the end, you don't want any unwanted surprises. You want to know how much time you're going to be able to commit to this, how much money. You want to do research on the organization you're working with, if you are working with an organization, etc. So if you are going to do anything long-term, volunteering, commitments, anything like that, I encourage you to think of these questions and ask yourself these questions before you do participate in this. Now I want to conclude with this. Think about what you want to do now to shape your future self. It has been proven through my research and experience that volunteering as an adolescent has benefits for you, your community, and the world. Research proves that there's a link between volunteering and secondary school completion, which in turn means better job opportunities and a more stable life. As well as this, volunteering can make a difference in people's lives. Having the satisfaction that you got to help people is motivating and can drive you to do great things in your life. I encourage everyone to take that step out of their comfort zone and volunteer, whether it be in your own community or another. Thank you for your time.
What an awesome project, Isaac. And I just want to commend you because your project went through a couple of different iterations and you did a really nice job. It really came together in the end. So congratulations, Isaac.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Isaac about his volunteer project?
I do. So how many hours did you spend in total when you went down to the missions trip? Like how many hours did you spend helping?
Oh gosh. So the mission trip took place over a week. If I had to estimate, I would say 20 to 30 hours. We were doing various things. So we went to the city of Puebla. That's where we originally stayed. We met the missionaries that actually used to go to our church. So we went there and met them. We stayed in Puebla for a couple of days. But the main part of the trip was actually traveling to a missionary conference that was happening a couple hours away. So we drove down there in a van. And while the missionaries were actually taking part of the conference, we were helping with the missionary kids. So we were like doing programs for them and that sort of stuff while the parents were at the conference. So yeah, it kind of varied from day to day, but I guess 20 to 30 hours.
Does anyone else have any questions for Isaac this morning?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you hope to go back to the orphanages that you visited?
Absolutely. I mean, we were honestly, in all honesty, we were probably going to go back this school year, go back to Puebla, but with the pandemic, that wasn't going to happen. But in the future, I certainly hope to go back down and see the kids again.
Thank you, Isaac.